Hello, everybody. Welcome to this meeting that is organized between the ADRC REC Steering Committee, the NIA, the Alzheimer Association, and NACC. Thank you for joining us. We're super excited to have everybody. My name is Hussein Yassin. I'm from University of Southern California, and it is my pleasure to introduce our moderators who will talk in a second, but just to let everybody know, we will be sharing these slides with everybody who registered. We will be happy to communicate with you. So please send your questions through the chat box. The meeting is about to start, but let me introduce some of our colleagues. Barbara Bendlin from the ADRC REC. Barb.
Hi, everyone. I'm at the University of Wisconsin and part of the ADRC REC Steering Committee.
Excellent. Liz Head.
Morning, everyone. I'm at the University of California, Irvine, and also have the pleasure of serving with Sen and Barb.
Thank you. Elizabeth Shaban.
Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Shaban, University of Pittsburgh, and chair of the PIA to Elevate Early Career Researchers.
Excellent. Doigu.
Hi, everyone. This is Doigu Tosun from University of California, San Francisco, and I'm the chair of the AWARE PIA.
Excellent. And finally, from the moderators, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Zielsdorf. I am also from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm chair of the Diversity and Disparities PIA.
Excellent. So we're about to start our presentation, and our first speaker is going to be Grayson Donnelly from the NIA. Grayson.
Thank you, Sen. My name is Grayson Donnelly, and I primarily work with the ADRCs at the National Institute on Aging. In the last progress reporting period, the ADRC Research Education Components, or RECs, supported more than 500 scholars and trainees, and we are excited that so many people could join the webinar today. I would like to thank the ADRC REC Steering Committee for their initiative in putting this webinar together in collaboration with the Alzheimer's Association. I would also like to thank the moderators as well as our NIA colleagues, Drs. Maria Carranza and Jamie Lovick, and the National Alzheimer's Coordinating Center for presenting early career funding opportunities. We hope you all enjoy this informative session. And with that, I will turn it over to Maria and Jamie.
All right, thank you so much. Next. So my name is Jamie Lovick. I'm a program officer at the NIA, and I specialize in training and career development programs. And then I'll be giving you an overview of some of our programs and then passing things along to my colleague, Maria. Next. So this is an overview slide that represents all of the different awards targeted at training and career development that are available from the NIA, and they're organized by career stage. So you can see there are quite a lot of awards. We're going to be highlighting just a few of these today, but we do recommend that you check out this slide on our website if you're interested in exploring sort of the full range of awards that we have available. Next. We also want to encourage people to keep in touch with us. Maria and I are both very friendly and very available to answer your questions. So we have a link here to our website that includes information on all of our awards. Also a link to sign up for our newsletter that goes out about once a month and provides lots of great information about training and career development. And then our joint email below that we share where you can send us any questions about our awards. Next. So first I'll be starting to talk about fellowships and awards similar to fellowships, and these are primarily for graduate students and postdocs. Next, please. And thank you. Yeah, go ahead and advance through. Perfect. So as you might be aware of the F30, the F31, and the F32, these are sort of the cross NIH fellowships that are available from many different NIH institutes. And so these are targeted at different career stages, as you can see, and all of these awards come to your mentor and provide you with a stipend, sometimes tuition, and then also an institutional allowance. And these awards typically have 3 due dates per year, so whenever you're ready to apply, you can start to prepare your application. But then I also want to tell you today about a couple of NIA-specific awards. So those are the R36 Dissertation Award and the F99 Pre-Doc to Postdoctoral Transition Award. Next, please. So the R36, as I said, is a dissertation award. So it's designed to provide up to 2 years of funding to allow a graduate student to finish their PhD. So it pays for your stipend as well as $20,000 per year in research dollars. And this one is specifically available only to graduate students who are from groups that are underrepresented in the biomedical sciences. So if you're getting close to finishing your PhD, this might be one to look at. Though do be careful because this does have a different pay line from the fellowships. So it can affect your likelihood of getting paid. Though due to our Alzheimer's disease pay lines, that difference is less important for those of you who are doing Alzheimer's research. Next. So then the F99 is a 2-phase transition award. So this one provides up to 2 years of funding to help you finish your dissertation, and then up to 4 years of funding for your postdoctoral period. So this is great for those graduate students who are approaching the end of their PhD and who know that they want to continue doing postdoc research in the aging or Alzheimer's field. So it can be helpful before you apply to already identify that postdoc lab that you want to join. And you can also talk about this award to your friends and colleagues who aren't currently in aging research, because only that postdoctoral period is really required to be in aging research. And importantly, this one is available both to US citizens as well as international students pursuing research in the US. This one only has one due date per year, so you really want to plan well to catch that due date. Next. And then finally, for this audience, we wanted to specifically highlight a trio of awards that are our translational ADRD awards. So these are 3 awards at different career levels. So the F31 for students, the F32 for early stage postdocs, and then the K99 for more senior postdocs. And for all 3 of these awards, you need to be a member of a group that is underrepresented in biomedical sciences, and you need to be doing research that is focused on Alzheimer's disease or related dementias. And even more specifically than that, your research should be translational in nature and should be focused on either drug discovery or data science. So it's a very sort of narrowly targeted award, but if you have an application that fits this category, this can give you a really high chance of success. Next. And then from here, we're going to move on to talking about the Mentor Career Development Awards, which are more typically for postdocs and early career faculty. And so I will hand things off to my colleague, Maria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Carranza, and I am the NIA Training Officer. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Next, please. So you might have heard about the Career Development or K Awards that the NIH offers. We wanted to highlight here on this list that there are 2 very important kinds of Career Development or K Awards. And the first kind is the Career Transition Awards, which are the K99 and the K22. These are specifically designed for postdocs who are seeking to transition to their first full-time independent faculty position. In addition, the second kind of K award that is important for this audience is the Career Development Awards, the K01, K08, etc., that you see here. These are awards that are designed especially for junior faculty, although most of these allow you to apply as a postdoc. We will talk a little more about the differences between these awards, but it's basically the type of degree and the type of science that you're pursuing with each one of them. And then the K76 award, which has some specific characteristics that we will mention. Next. Importantly, for the NIA Career Transition Awards, which are extremely popular, we wanted to highlight here some of the similarities and some of the differences. The K99 award is a very popular award, and in fact, it's the award that garners the most applications at the NIA. It is a very important award because the parent K99 is available also to individuals who are not US citizens or permanent residents. So both awards are targeted for postdocs, but one of the main differences is the time in postdoctoral research that you may have spent. For the K-99, this eligibility window is a little bit more narrow because you must have up to 4 years of postdoctoral experience for either your first submission or your resubmission. The K-22 award, was designed specifically to be complementary to the K-99 at NIA because it allows postdocs to have anywhere between 2 to 8 years of postdoctoral experience. However, the K-22 award is available only to U.S. citizens and permanent residents. In terms of funding for your postdoctoral research, if you need funding still for your postdoctoral research period, the K-99 may be a better option for you because it provides 1 to 2 years of postdoctoral funding. In contrast, the K-22, if you are successful, it will not provide postdoctoral funding, but it will provide you with a letter that gives you up to 1 year to secure your faculty position. So if you're in a place where you are closer to transitioning to your faculty position, the K-22 opportunity would actually be a better option. And then in terms of funding for your first independent faculty position, both awards will provide you with 3 years of funding for your research and salary. Next. The NIA is signed on to a variety of K-99 opportunities in addition to the parent K-99 award, which was mentioned earlier. So as you can see here, there are some awards that are specific and more narrow in their research topic. For example, the ADRD K-99 that was mentioned by Jamie earlier, which has a more narrow scientific focus. In addition, NIA participates in the Mosaic K-99 and Brain K-99, where either all subjects in aging research are welcome or where the topics have to be aligned with the Brain Initiative's priorities. In addition, we also subscribe to the NANDS ADRD K-99 opportunity, which also has its own disciplinary focus. Next, please. So in terms of the career development awards we mentioned earlier, there's a variety of types. These have some similarities and some differences, and some of the similarities is that they are meant for junior faculty that are seeking continued mentorship. As I mentioned earlier, some of these allow you to apply as a postdoc, but will be required to have a faculty position by the time of award. However, this faculty position may or may not be tenure track, so that is a difference with the career transition awards. These K awards all provide anywhere between $75,000 and $100,000 in salary and anywhere between $20,000 to $40,000 in research costs. This is not a range, however. Each one of these different types of awards has a very specific number of dollars that are for research costs. And then we also want to make sure to mention the Beeson K-76 Emerging Leaders Career Development Award in Aging. So this is specific to NIA, and it's for junior to mid-career faculty who have leadership experience and who have received faculty-level research support, and who also have what is called the early stage investigator status. This award is very attractive, and it has a total direct cost of $225,000 per year. And in addition, this award allows participants or awardees to become part of a cohort that participates in career development opportunities that are organized by AFAR. Next, please. Now we're going to briefly cover some of the opportunities available for early stage investigators or early career faculty. Next. And first, we're going to examine two very important definitions. The first is early stage investigator, or ESI, and the second is new investigator, or NI. An early stage investigator is an individual who has not yet received R01 or equivalent type of funding from the NIH, and who is within 10 years of having completed their terminal degree. A new investigator is someone who has not yet received R01 or equivalent funding from NIH, but who may be beyond those 10 years of receiving their final degree. So these two definitions are extremely important because they will determine, as we'll mention in a little bit, the type of payment that may apply to your research project grants. However, we want to make sure with this slide, first of all, to encourage every one of you to keep an updated ERA Commons account that really projects if you are an ESI or an NI, because this will be to your advantage, as we will explain in just a minute. And we also want to make sure that everyone here is available, is aware that extensions are available. Extensions for childbirth, medical leave, COVID-19 delays to your research, etc. So please make sure that you look at our website if any of these extensions might apply to you, and that you make sure that you submit your application for that extension as soon as possible. Next. And knowing what your status is, either ESI or NI, is extremely important because research from early stage and new investigators is among NIA's highest priorities. And as such, you will be considered at a more generous pay line, as you can see here, for example, if you are an ESI or an NI. So that's why it's very important to keep an updated ERA Commons account so that you can take advantage of these better pay lines, especially for ADRD research, as you can see on the right. Next. One interesting opportunity for early stage investigators that we want to mention is the Stephen Katz Early Stage Investigator R01 opportunity, which is a full-fledged R01 application, but that's specific for ESI individuals. It requires the project to be innovative and to represent a change in research direction for the particular PI. And very importantly, no preliminary data is allowed. No preliminary data should exist. So this is the one caveat about this opportunity. If there is any hint or mention of preliminary data in your application, it will be withdrawn. So it's very important that you communicate with us early to make sure that this is the right opportunity for you. Next. And as such, we also want to recommend that you explore which type of research mechanisms might be a good option for you, and so that you know the different options that you have. We, of course, are all aware about R01 research project grants, which are the standard 5-year award that has no limit in budget, but this is typically an award for advanced and established independent investigators. So early stage investigators may wish to strategize by applying for career development awards and or some of these smaller or exploratory research grants. R21 grants are high-risk, high-reward 2-year awards where no preliminary data is required but may be included, as opposed to the CATS R01 that we mentioned earlier. There's also the small research grants, which are provide anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000 per year for up to 2 years, and are used mostly to develop pilot research that will provide preliminary data that you can then use for a regular R01 application. In addition, depending on the type of institution that you may have transitioned to for your faculty position, you may be eligible for R15 or R16 Research Enhancement Awards, which are special awards at the NIH that are specific for institutions that are focused on students, on undergraduates, and institutions that do not receive large amounts of NIH funding. So if you have any questions about these, please feel free to reach out. Next. We also want to make sure that we make you aware of a special opportunity available at the NIA, and that is the Research and Entrepreneurial Development Immersion, or READY Awards. These are awards that are designed to support the transition of individuals to research independence in a multitude of career options, including research and teaching faculty, as well as entrepreneurial, industry, science policy, and research administration positions. So we, under this umbrella, we have a KO1 award, which is meant for postdocs and junior faculty. We also have an R25 award, which is an institutional award to provide career development opportunities in these areas, as well as 2 small business-focused READY awards. Next. We also want to make sure to invite you to another NIA specific opportunity, which is the Butler Williams Scholars Program. This is a highly competitive NIA training program for early career folks who may be interested in a bootcamp type of training where you will learn all about NIA's priorities. You will have one-on-one contact with scientific program staff that can give you feedback on your specific aims, and where you will even participate on mock review sessions so that you can really have an immersive experience that will allow you to then be successful in submitting applications and, of course, in publishing your work. Applications for this program are opening in the spring, and then the program is held in the summer every year. If you have any questions, please see this email below. Next. Finally, we just want to make everyone aware of the availability of supplements for different purposes. These supplements are not grants, but additional money that is added to an existing research project grant. The first type is diversity supplements, which are designed to enhance the participation of individuals from underrepresented backgrounds in biomedical research, specifically in an aging research opportunity. There's also the reentry and reintegration supplements, which are for individuals with a high potential to re-enter or reintegrate into an active research career after having had a career interruption for different reasons. And then also the continuity and retention supplements, which are available to existing K awardees and first-time recipients of research project grants that are designed to minimize their departure from biomedical research when these individuals are facing critical life events. So we invite you to learn more about these. These have actually just very recently been reissued. Next. We want to end this presentation by inviting you to connect with us in different ways, by subscribing to our blog, by subscribing to our NIA training newsletter, which comes out monthly with important updates, and then also to follow us on Twitter for up-to-date NIA research news. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Hello, my name is Sarah Biber, and I am the Program Director at the National Alzheimer's Coordinating Center. NACC serves as the Data, Collaboration, Communication Coordinating Center for NIA's Alzheimer's Disease Research Centers program. And I'm here today to tell you about our new Investigator Award opportunity that's coming up. Next slide. So NACC has been distributing awards to early career researchers for the past 22 years. We're thrilled to have had the opportunity to distribute 51 awards to date. The NACC Scientific Review Committee evaluates the proposals, and the NACC Steering Committee selects the winners for these awards. And they have ranged over the years from $50,000 to $300,000 in size. And our current new Investigator Awards that are open currently are for $135,000. These are highly competitive. Last year, NACC received over 51 applications from across 29 Alzheimer's disease research centers. You can see here who our winners were for the 2022 award, and we're very excited to review applications for this coming award cycle. Next slide, please. So you can learn more about this opportunity by going to bit.ly/NIA/awards or by using this QR code there. As I mentioned, that these awards for the 2023 cycle, we currently have a call for applications that's live. The applications are due on January 17th, 2023. And we have two tracks to choose from. So we have our traditional award, which is open to proposals focused on any Alzheimer's disease related dementia topic, research topic. And we also have a new track, which is focused on diversity, equity, inclusion. And that is open to proposals with a strong DEI or health disparities research focus within ADRD. So we're really excited about this new track and to have the opportunity to share that today. Next slide. So A little bit more about that. So as I mentioned, we're for the new DEI related award, it's open to any DEI or health disparities related topic. A few potential areas that these awards could be focused on would be understanding the scientific underpinnings of potential racial and ethnic differences in the pathobiology and clinical phenotype of ADRD, examining and addressing why some historically minoritized populations are disproportionately underdiagnosed and affected by ADRD. Assessing the possible relationship between lifelong social exposure and risk and resilience to ADRD, and then also methodologies for diverse participant recruitment. But these are just a few potential areas. It's very, very open to other ideas as well. Next slide. So in order to apply for this award, in order to be eligible, you must be a new investigator. So new investigators are defined as postdoctoral fellows, residents, or junior faculty that have not yet been promoted to associate professor rank. MD or PhD is fine. And then new they also must be affiliated with an Alzheimer's disease research center, which there are currently 37, of course, across the country. So they must get, in order to be affiliated, you need to be able to get a letter from your ADRC director. They must provide a letter on behalf of the new investigator confirming that they are affiliated. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so very much for joining this webinar today. I'm Heather Snyder. I'm one of the scientists on staff at the Alzheimer's Association, and it's a pleasure to share a little bit more about our funding programs and initiatives. I do want to start by just sharing that within the Alzheimer's Association, our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia, and that applies to our funding. So it's the full spectrum of Alzheimer's and all dementia that are eligible for our funding programs. Next slide. So in terms of when we look at our research strategy, and you'll see this reflected in this idea of seeding new ideas, speeding development forward, and scaling up across the board. And that's really whether it is our funding, whether it is things like the Alzheimer's Association's International Conference or the other meetings that are convened throughout the year to bring researchers together, or whether it is opportunities like iStart, the partnership with this webinar in bringing this opportunity of seeding new ideas and hopefully speeding all of you to apply for all of these funding programs going forward. Next slide. So wanted very specifically to talk today about the early career and new to the field research grants. I've seen a lot of the questions in terms of eligibility, especially individuals that citizenship and whether US-based or not. The Alzheimer's Association does not have any of those requirements. All of these programs are international and they are open to individuals from around the world, and there is no specific citizenship requirement. The next cycles of these programs is in January of 2023, and you can see the website and also a place to email for any questions or information. You can, of course, always reach out to me, and I know Dr. Stefania Forner is on here today and is also happy to take questions or reach out to you or respond to your queries, and we'll put our contact information in the chat when we're in the Q&A part. So these programs across all of them, they're slightly different in terms of the eligibility and the requirements for these programs, but they are open calls across the entire spectrum of science. We often get questions around what is a priority within a particular area, but these are open calls really from looking at cells in a dish, proteins in a tube, clinical interventions, equity disparities research, care interventions, caregiver support, and throughout the entire spectrum of these individual programs. Next slide. And we have a number of other programs that are coming in the near future. Some are open right now, whether they be for more established investigators like our Zenith program that are specific on care and outcomes, like our RCOM program. We have an RFA opening in January of 2023, very specific to understanding of sex and gender contributions, including gender identification in Alzheimer's and related dementia, and other programs that are coming. So more details on all of these programs in terms of the specific eligibility is available on our website. But in looking at the programs I just shared, many of those are for early career researchers defined in the specific program, and others are more open or general calls for early career, mid-career, and more established researchers across the board. And I'd encourage you to check out the specific RFAs or the specific programs to learn more information. Next slide. So just a little bit of a snapshot of the process, because I always think that we get a lot of questions about this. All of our programs do require a letter of intent. So this is a pre-proposal. There are some very specific fields that you have to fill out and complete. These are reviewed, and they are reviewed by experts from around the world in the individual areas of the application's focus. We invite a fraction of those to submit full applications. Full applications also go through peer review, and then they go to a review panel of experts. And I know many of those are the individuals that you see on your screen today, as well as many others from around the world. One thing I do also want to raise is that we hear from individuals that they love an experience of being part of that review process. Reach out to us and we'll work with you to identify an opportunity to engage you. We often hear, and I think I see some nods, we often hear that this is really the best way to learn what reviewers are looking for and how to really refine your own applications as you go forward. This group makes recommendations through the International Research Grant Program Council of the Association, and ultimately makes those recommendations to the Alzheimer's Association. So more details on each step of this process, what's reviewed in an LOI or in an application, is available on our website at alz.org grants. But I see it's been put in the chat, and we'll send it to everybody in a moment. I'd also just want to note that I'd encourage you to reach out at any step of the way. If you have questions about anything, if you have an LOI and it's not invited, reach out, ask why. That's the information. We can help share that information with you. We can help provide some feedback, connect you with a current or a past awardee that may also be able to share with you more information about their experience. Next slide. And again, here's the email, the website, including for grants or for iStart if you want more information about that. And of course, AAIC, and we encourage you, if you're at AAIC, to make sure to visit us while you're there. But also we're present at the Society for Neuroscience, the American Academy of Neurology, and many other meetings throughout the year. And really looking forward to your questions and the discussion, and want to make sure we have ample time for that. So I'll pass it back to you, Hussein.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. So next session is going to be applying for funding tips, and we've got some exciting data to share.
Hi, I'm Roiko Toson from University of California, San Francisco, and I'm the chair of the AWARE PI. And thank you so much, NIA, NACC, and Alzheimer Association for such a detailed explanation of the funding opportunities. As Hussein mentioned, we're going to share some tips for a successful grant application. I want to emphasize that reviewers are your ally to get funded, and you really need a reviewer to champion your grant to get funded. So reviewers are excited when grants address a significant problem. So when you apply for funding opportunities, make your case by addressing particular question, why this problem is important, why it's now to address this problem, why it hasn't been solved, and if you will be successful, what will it mean for the world? Also, it might seem kind of obvious, but one of the common mistakes is not truly understanding the expectations from the application process, what the funder wants, what are the key rules that could disqualify you. So pay attention to those details, because everything is reviewed. Every single document you submit, that will be reviewed by either the funding agency or by the reviewers. Funders ask reviewers to rate grants on particular evaluation criteria. So please make it easy for the reviewers to find that information. Either use clip-off evaluation criteria to signal that you're speaking about that information reviewers need. Also use provide reviewers evidence in your application so that they can easily advocate for your work. The grant is, my final note is, the grant is not about your journal. It usually takes a very long process to connect the dots. You're going to take a path that's going to go from A to Z through multiple points, but You need to give this concrete evidence about your proposal and explain it simply from A to Z. You took detours, you took wrong turns to understand a topic. Focus on the reviewer journey when you're writing your application, why this problem is important and it's going to have high impact. And also be reviewer friendly. Don't use unnecessary acronyms. Put lots of white spaces. Short sentences are always easy to follow, and figures are your best friends. Graphs and figures, they're going to explain way more than your words. Those are my couple suggestions.
Thank you, Dago.
And hi, everybody. Back again as the chair from the peers, Pia, and somebody who's also lucky enough to be a Pitt ADRC Rec Scholar. So I have experience with having received training grants before, an F31, and then now being supported by an NIA funded K01 Career Development Award. So these are some dues from the perspective of those types of training and career development awards. First, identify what you'd like to be working on in about 3 to 5 years' time after this grant. And then you can step back and reverse engineer. What is it for the scientific questions that you have? What skills and expertise do you need to get there to be able to successfully carry out that grant? Next, you want to build on what you already know. You don't want to propose training that you already have, but you want to make it very clear to the reviewers, what's the training that you already have and the skills that you already possess versus the training gaps that you have. And then you want to propose training that will fill those training gaps. Next, you want to engage a few experienced mentors with expertise in the areas of those training gaps, and who can promote your career development. So that may be a few people that you need on your team to mentor you. Next, you want to integrate the training with the science of your grant. So the scientific questions that you have should flow and interlock with that training that you're proposing. Next, you want to be organized. You need to reverse engineer yourself a timeline. You want to track very well what you have on hand already and what you're going to need from other people and check those things off as you go along. And you want to give yourself a lot of time, probably more than you think you will need. Next, and this was already covered very beautifully by the last speaker, but please support the cognitive neuroscience of the reader or the reviewer. It will make things so much easier for them as they're reviewing. And then finally, it's really important to persevere. Chances are very high that you may not be successful on your first attempt to put this application in and get funding, but don't let that discourage you. You want to get with your mentors, review the comments that the reviewers have. You may need your mentors to help you read the tea leaves a little bit. It can be a confusing process. And then you want to take that input and write a revision and resubmit. Thanks, and I'll turn it over to Megan next.
Thank you, Beth. I want to emphasize for these tips that I've offered up that I'm an early career researcher myself. So these are sort of what I've learned along my own journey and that have been, I think, some of the most helpful things. I've divided into both the specific aims separate from the research strategy. If you have heard the advice to spend the most time on your specific aims, nailing those down, people are right. This is really key. So things that I like to do as I'm writing the specific aims, make sure that I am introducing the ideas that are going to drive each aim. You shouldn't surprise anyone once they get to your actual aims 1, 2, 3 down at the bottom of the page with whole new ideas. You really want to bring both the concepts and the major gaps in the current field of knowledge that are driving your aims. Other people have covered this as well, but you always want to keep your reviewer in mind and make especially your aims page enjoyable to read. This is where people are going to form their first impressions. So I go through, I cut just about every sentence in half as I can. Try to leave a lot of white space. Try to strike a balance between setting up the right expectations for what you're going to be doing in your study, what people can expect to see as they read through your research strategy, and getting in too much into the weeds in the specific aims. You don't want to do that. Seeking feedback is one of the most useful things you can do. And I say I'm chair of the Diversity and Disparities PIA. One thing we know that we love about our PIAs is they give us kind of the choir, right? We talk about preaching to the choir, where you get to talk to people that love the same kind of work that you do, think the same things are important. Seek feedback from people who are outside of your choir. Seek feedback from people who are skeptical, maybe of your subfield, or that don't understand it a lot. They are going to give you some of the most important feedback on your AIMS page, because your AIMS page needs to appeal to people who may not be in your subfield. In terms of the research strategy, the key thing that I have learned, and the thing that I teach my trainees first and foremost, is start with an outline. You have such limited space. Make sure that you have a sense of what each and every paragraph is supposed to be doing. What argument are you trying to get across, and start there. I think it's really nice to include a figure or a conceptual model that helps people who are visual understand what you are doing. The model should cover both your overarching question and show how each of your aims fit together. And your analytic approach should really clearly flow from the conceptual model itself. And finally, and this is something that I think is really important for people who are part of the Diversity and Disparities PIA or are interested in that kind of work, if inclusive science is a key part of the significance or the innovation of your project, and you're going to be doing something to include historically excluded populations, justify how you're going to do that. If your team has already built incredible relationships and a lot of infrastructure, that is a huge strength for your proposal, and you should lay out what they have done and what they're doing. If you're going to be doing something new to change the status quo, make that case as well. How are you going to be, the status quo hasn't been working. What are you doing to shift it up? And that's it for me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Liz Hannigan. I'm from UCI and I serve on the National Steering Committee. And so the tips that I came up with really relate to not only submitting grants, but also being on study section for many, many years. And so these are some things that I've seen that really can be problematic for a new investigator. So I put it as a do this and don't do this. It's, again, and this has been mentioned, start earlier. These things take a lot longer than you expect. You need to get to know your contracts analyst to get your budgets put together. So start well in advance. And always start, it sounds so obvious, but start with your hypothesis. I know sometimes people start with, I have a resource and I'm going to work backwards and see what I can do with it. That's never going to fly. You want to start with your big question. And then Megan just mentioned this, your aims are super critical. Your aims page is the real anchor, the real hook of your whole grant, and spend a lot of time on that and get a lot of feedback. But then your next step is actually reach out to program before you even think about submitting this grant, because you want some feedback from your program officer about where this should go, what study section might be a good fit, for example, if you are able to help in that decision. And then once you kind of have that blessing, I think you're in really good shape. It's still surprising to me sometimes I don't see power analyses, and that's going to kill your grant pretty quickly. And now, and I'm really delighted about this, we need to talk about sex as a biological variable for research, incredibly important. And no hand waving on this, really talk about why it's important to look at sex differences. Don't be afraid to use bullets. A little trick I learned as a reviewer reading things, I really appreciate seeing bullets. It makes my job easier, for example, in innovation, to bullet out things. So the things that you don't want to do, and I'll emphasize this for, especially for first-time investigators, is be too ambitious. This is another thing that I see fairly consistently, in that everybody wants to do everything all at once. And the best thing to do is stay focused and recognize that at some point you can write a grant for your additional ideas once you're successful. But let us understand that you can accomplish these aims in the time that you have. This has also been mentioned several times just in terms of the presentation of your grant, is please don't make this text really dense for us. I love, again, what Megan said. I think Megan said that, or Elizabeth, about cutting your sentences in half, make it easier, bite-sized. Do not make your figures too small. Don't cram a bunch of stuff in there. Please don't ignore rigor and reproducibility. Pay a lot of attention. Talk about it in a separate section. And a little thing that I learned from my own mentor way back in the day was try not to use past tense in your writing. Try use present tense. It's way more engaging and fun to read for a reviewer. So, and that's a little trick we can all do very quickly. So those are the few things I've learned over the years of reviewing grants, and I'll pass it over.
Thank you, Liz. So I also have been fortunate to have had a K23 from NHLBI and a new investigator award from the Alzheimer Association. And without those training grants, I would have not been able to do what I'm doing now. Here's my tips, and I tried to be a little bit different to tell you what drives my score when I'm on study section. I would say the number one thing for me is clarity. If I cannot understand a given grant, I lose interest. And when I lose interest, my scores are automatically going to be lower. So make sure that many people are reading your grant and understand what you're saying. Another aspect that goes really unrecognized is rigor. And sometimes, you know, a lot of grants are scored in a similar way that do not make them stand out. Those that stand out make the applicant or the scientist have really emphasized rigor. Give you some examples. As Liz said, they're careful with sample sizes. They included randomization even for animal studies. They use independent models or cohorts. For a career development grant, I would suggest that one mentor may not be enough. You might need one mentor for the science, but you might need other mentors for career development. And it's important when you're writing this grant to tell the reviewer what you're bringing to this field. If you're outside the field of AD, what is it that you are bringing? If you are within the field of AD, what is it? Why should the field invest in this work? And how this could be unique to stand out from the crowd. Now, things not to do, and this is my personal opinion, and doesn't have to be this way, but I would suggest for people writing their first R01 or K awards not to have more than 2 specific aims. Go deep, don't go horizontal, don't go diffuse. Just one aim could be enough. 2 aims is more than plenty. Just go deep as much as you can. When I review early career grants, one of the things that I look for is this person replicating exactly the mentor's research? Is there any evidence of originality? I tend to score applications with originality higher. Do not propose training in historical areas. Try to find something cutting edge and new because, you know, as a reviewer, we want the field to move forward. And the last component is, you know, we all have excellent mentors that we love and we share time with, and they're super nice, but they shouldn't be on your application if this is for a career development award, if they're not NIH funded. Choose a mentor who is NIH funded. That is critical because there's so many other things and subtleties that you need the NIH funded mentor to be able to guide you throughout this process.
Thanks, Sen. And all my colleagues who have provided wonderful tips. Just a few more here before we move on to questions. So for things that I think you should do is pick an idea that you are excited about. You're going to be working on this for the next 3, 5, maybe 10 years. So pick something that you will be excited to do, and hopefully also with collaborators that you enjoy and like and want to work with. Clear your calendar. This is just a kind of practical tip. If you are writing a grant and you know when your grant is due, do not schedule any talks, trips, meetings, or other commitments during that time. It might seem like you'll be able to handle it all, but when your grant deadline approaches, you'll realize that you're going to lose your mind if you try and do everything. So feel free to tell people I cannot do that. Please check in with me again after my grant goes in. Identify rate limiting steps early. So if you are relying on other people for help with budgets, letters, maybe a statistician to help with a power calculation, make sure you ask people early. There's nothing so scary as having your grant deadline approach and have things that are out of your control. So try and do those things early. You do want feedback, but limit your time period for feedback. So again, collect feedback early and then lock it down because you don't want to be incorporating too many new directions as your grant deadline approaches. I would also encourage people to write more than one grant. I know it can seem really overwhelming when you're working on one project and you think, gosh, it's so hard to write one grant. I can't even imagine writing another. But the more grants that you submit, the better your chances are of funding. So submit to a lot of different mechanisms, and a lot of what you write could be helpful for, multiple mechanisms. You'll need to have distinct aims, but a lot of the language could actually be spread across multiple possible mechanisms. And of course, improve your grant and resubmit if you don't get it on the first try. And celebrate your submission. So, we celebrate getting grants, but you should also celebrate your submission. Writing a grant is a big deal, and you've learned a lot just through that process. So it's definitely something to celebrate. In terms of things you should not do, you've heard this already. Don't write something too big for your first project. Again, write something that you can imagine yourself doing once it's actually funded. Don't lose your confidence or give up. Everybody here on this panel is holding this session today because we believe in you and we know that you are going to get funded. So thank you for joining us, and we are now going to take questions.
Thank you, Barbara. I want to thank all the panelists really answering all these questions we're getting on the Q&A. There have been many questions about citizenship. Some of these have been answered. There's this one particular question about the NACC applications. Can non-US citizens apply for NACC 2023 New Investigator Award?
Hi there, this is Sarah. I believe that as long as you're affiliated with an ADRC, and you can get that letter of support from your ADRC director, that you would be eligible.
Just a follow-up on that, there's another question where it's about ADRCs and having an affiliation with an ADRC. If the university, their current university doesn't have an ADRC, local ADRC, what will be your suggestions or recommendations to identify an affiliation with another ADRC? Will that work?
I'll have to get back to you on that unless Nina can weigh in on that piece, or Cerise, in terms of how to establish that affiliation. Is that the question?
Yeah.
I was actually just typing an answer.
Oh.
I think it's going to probably depend on the individual ADRC, but I would encourage you to reach out to potential colleagues at the ADRC and see if they would be interested in collaborating on your project, and they can give you advice about connecting with the Alzheimer Center. They all do collaborate with people outside of their institution and outside of the ADRC program, so that's certainly at least possible to collaborate.
Another question, again, we have a very diverse group here. Can any of the NIH or NACC awards be held outside United States? I think it's a complicated question.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Nina or Cerise on that one as well, or I'd have to get back to you guys about that.
Okay, thank you.
You can always email me directly, and I'm happy to respond.
Yeah, we're going to provide our email addresses. Again, feel free to reach directly to us after this. I think
our other NIA colleagues can answer about the NIH grants.
Yeah, so for the NIA awards, the research awards are awards. It is possible to hold those outside of the US. However, typically that's a higher level of review, so you have to justify why it's important to do that research outside of the US rather than in the US. And then for pretty much all of the career development or fellowship awards, so any of the F or the Ks, those are for research being conducted in the US.
Thank you. There's another question to NIA. Is the pilot study required for the Early Investigator Award?
So
the question,
go ahead.
No, sorry. No, please.
Thank you. We need to clarify what the applicant may be referring to. If they are referring to the ESI CATS R01, no preliminary data at all is permitted. So there should be 0 preliminary data in that application. If it is a different ESI award that you're asking about, kindly clarify and we'll be happy to answer your question.
Thank you. There was another question asking if there is a repository where they can access previous successful grants as an example.
So there are a few of those available from the National Institutes of Health. And we have a couple of the K99 examples on our NIA websites. And then several of our sister institutes have a lot of other examples for instance, the K01 and the K08. And then I always like to plug the NIH Reporter as well. If you just Google NIH Reporter, you'll be able to search a database of all funded NIH research. And it won't give you the full application, but it'll give you the abstract. And that can be great for finding folks at your own local institution who have won these awards and who might be willing to share their application with you directly if you reach out.
Can I just add a little bit to that? And in terms of, so if you want to look beyond NIH, there's actually also housed on the NIA website is the International Alzheimer's Disease and Related Dementia Research Portfolio, or IDROP, IADRP. We'll send the link through the chat, and you can look really across 40, 50 funders globally about who might be doing work in the area or the space that you're doing work in. And that allows you to make those links and make those connections. And while the Alzheimer's Association doesn't share, we're not able to share the applicants. It's not our intellectual property. We hold those in confidence. We are happy to connect you to our past awardees, and many of those are some of the faces you see here. And I know many of them have spoken with potential applicants around applications, giving advice, giving input as well. And so we're always happy to make those connections. And then generally those researchers will share those resources. So please go ahead and reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. There's a question about clarifying the ESI status. If someone gets a co-PI or multi-PI award as an ESI, does that mean that their ESI status is gone for next application?
Do you want me to take a stab at that? Yeah, I just saw that question. So if I understood the question, so being a co-I or an MPI on an say an R21 would not affect your ESI status. If you are an MPI, however, on an R1 and it gets awarded, then at that point you would lose your ESI status.
Shoshana, could you please introduce yourself since it says my name there?
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. So I apparently logged in as Nina Silverberg, but my name actually is Shoshana Kahana, and I am the Deputy Director in the Office of Strategic Extramural Programs. Apologies, I don't know why that is happening. All right, we are at time, so I wanted to just take this moment to thank everybody who attended the webinar today. As I understand it, this is one of the most highly registered for and attended webinars that iStart has put on, and a number of individuals were involved in the success of today's event. There were a number of questions that we were not able to answer today, but they really provide us a great actually start to maybe preparing some documents for you all. Try to answer these questions, and maybe they could even, some of the answers could be released and the slides are provided in another way. Thank you to all of our individuals from the National Institute on Aging, as well as the Alzheimer's Association staff and the research education component individuals and our PIA leaders. We just had a really great turnout today. I also want to thank Jody, Cheryl, Johanna, and others for providing all of the organizational and IT support. And again, thank you all for joining us. We'll be providing our emails to you, and the slides will be available, so you can certainly follow up with any of us in the future. And best of luck to all of you in your applications for new investigator grants. Thanks, everyone.